Well, welcome to the Ordinary Discipleship Podcast. I'm Jessie Cruikshank, and today we are talking with Jessica and Andrew Arnold, some of my dearest, longest friends, and I am so excited to have them on the podcast today. So, Jessica, Andrew, welcome. We are going to talk today about your family and your beautiful daughter, specifically your beautiful daughter, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, it's great to be here. Yeah, I'm Andrew. This is my wife.
Jessica.
We've been married now 23 years, and we have three wonderful, beautiful children, Isabel, Sarah, and then our son, Flynn. And yeah, so today we'll be talking and just sharing about our journey with Sarah, I guess raising her as parents, but really primarily just like you said, focusing on just our journey with Jesus, the Lord, in discipling her and inviting her and calling her and welcoming her into Christ likeness and becoming a disciple. So yeah, it's really great to be here, Jess. What would you like to say, love?
Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk about, how to raise a neurodivergent child to know Jesus and the challenges thereof. So, if you're an audience listening, I think it's important to know that we stand here, having been married 23 years, and 20 of those years has been with Sarah.
Mm.
Sarah's 20, and Sarah was essentially, we did not have early intervention because they said, or the doctors said, oh, there's nothing wrong. She's just developmentally delayed. Her sister's speaking for her. So then she got her autistic diagnosis in kindergarten.
Mhm.
And we've had a test every 3 years led by a psychologist to redetermine her autistic status. Through the years, we've realized that the definition of autism is very broad.
Mhm.
And our family actually gets frustrated sometimes when someone comes along and says, well, I've got autism. And you're like, okay. You graduated high school, you own a car, you keep a consistent job. You have relationships that are not awkward. So, yeah, let me tell you about how we define autism. But Sarah is on the spectrum. She has really great speech and she's uber social.
Mhm.
Very, very social. And in fact, if we talk about her spirituality, and if you were to think about the five offices of the gospel of evangelist, apostle, teacher, she is an evangelist through and through. She, in fact, right now as we're speaking, she went first to a group at the university that are Orthodox Catholics. We're not Catholic, but she goes to their special Latin masses.
No, not
No?
that mass. No.
What is it?
Well, during Holy Week, they had more of like a high liturgy service. We don't need to get in the weeds.
No,
It's
but
not. It's not Latin mass. She's going to Vespers tonight, which is like
Vespers.
nightly prayers.
Okay, Vespers, nightly prayers. And then she'll go to a local youth group, at an evangelical church in town. And then she goes to our church's youth group. But yet she, in her Easter basket, wanted us to fill it with goth or anime. With that and her autism, she is high social, very articulate, but at the same time struggles with the who, what, where, when, how, and getting a straight story from, out of her, and reads and does math at a late elementary level at best. So she's not this high intelligence autism that's gonna, be able to get a job in society where she'll make lots of great money. But yet there is that spark of uniqueness in her that we, have always tried to focus on and are praying that she lives out like her full destiny in how God created her to be.
So how do you guys think about that? When parents think about their kid, they think about maybe who they're going to marry or the kind of family they'll raise or the job that they'll have, like a career. And those kinds of things aren't necessarily in Sarah's future. So how do you think about her purpose, and especially I want to say kingdom purpose, but I don't want to make that something disconnected from her life, all of these groups that she's a part of, that she brings her joie de vivre to, and her all of her I just really enjoy talking to her. Actually, I find it just super fun to listen to how she's thinking about things right now and what character she wants to be and what she's excited about. Um, so yeah, say a little more about that purpose and how you guys imagine that, and and what that entails for Sarah.
That's a great question. I mean, that's been a journey, I think, for each of us individually, for us collectively. I mean, since Sarah was born, but really since we started to realize and understand more about her autism, what does it mean for her to be on the autistic spectrum, going through early elementary, even into middle school, imagining what her future may be like. And it was hard back then. And I think we've had to hold our expectations very loosely. And I think, actually, speaking for myself, have to like readjust those expectations pretty dramatically from when you think of your child being born, imagining their future 20, 30, 40 years from the time they're born at some level. And realizing like, oh no, Sarah is definitely unique, different than both of our children, for sure. Every child's different, but that she has very different, like, unique plans and purposes for her life, and that's okay. But in some ways, it's like letting go of your own expectations first before there's space enough to like dream and believe what God might have for her. It sounds it's hard to say, but I think that's been some of my own process. I don't know about yours, but some of my own process to say, oh, she's not going to have maybe the same storyline arc that many kids have or many young adults have. It's going to be different in the sense of she's going to have a hard time graduating from high school. She's likely not going to go to college. It's going to be harder for her to have a spouse and a meaningful, significant other, in ways that are, mutual and reciprocal. And it's hard for her to have a job that is demanding and challenging. And so all those things, it's like, okay, I've got to surrender those to God. And in the midst of that, like, there's some really amazing, beautiful things that Sarah is, and that God, I think, uniquely has created her to be and live in this world for herself and other people, I guess would be one way to say it. That's really beautiful and special. And there's people that Sarah reaches and blesses and influences that I never would, and that many people would never. Like, I would say lots of marginalized, somewhat fringe people that get overlooked oftentimes by society, not just with disabilities, but socially and, relationally, really more on the edges of society people. And Sarah's just really, really wonderful with them. They're really kind, loving friend that it brings them in and includes them in her world and in the worlds of her communities. It's really beautiful. It definitely reflects the heart of God, the heart of Jesus. So, I mean, that's somebody, just like an initial thought to your question.
Yeah, a great example of that is a young man. We won't mention his name, but he has perpetual seizures. And so when you talk to him, it's very, he only talks about like Godzilla and trains, very labored. And Sarah will just talk for hours. She doesn't have like this like social expectation, of this back and forth, like you share, I share, you share, I share. I mean, she's willing to let him just go off about whatever he wants to, for hours on end. or just sit there in silence, like awkward silence while they play some, online game. And you're like, oh my gosh, like this is not my pace of life.
Yeah.
I think that's actually probably been the biggest challenge as we've grown up with her is just the pace.
Mm-hmm.
She's just like 8 steps behind and you're like, let's go, let's go. But then at the same time, as she's like gone into like transitioned into adulthood, is still living in her home,
Mm-hmm.
which that might be changing soon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pray for us. Just kind of going with her ebb and flow of social life and interests. In regards to her spirituality, I would like to share like a testimony. Sarah, from the time she was little, would cosplay.
Like costumes.
So costumes, but specifically costumes from shows. So Buzz Lightyear,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man,
Iron Man.
Iron Man. Now she's like into all these anime characters, and she went to her first Comic-Con 2 years ago. She had a boyfriend, and he was very cowboy, and it was a unhealthy relationship, and he didn't treat her with the kind of respect that she needed treated as one of, Jesus's. And when she broke up, she was so brokenhearted that a certain community came in and was trying to say that she could be whatever she wanted to be. So she started going by and impersonating and saying that she was Lane Frost. Okay. And I mean, like
Lane Frost, a famous cowboy bull rider.
that died at Shining Frontier days by getting impinged in his, organs and dying on the arena. Handsome cowboy, loved Jesus. And so she, was just like, my name is no longer Sarah, it's Lane Frost. So, of course, our church community was just freaking out. She's identifying as Lane Frost, he and I'm like, you have to understand that Sarah has identified as a character her whole life. Like now that she's wanting to be like Lane Frost, it's just, like we'll slap some cowboy boots, find her a fancy ranch buckle, a metal buckle, belt buckle, and, buy her the cool hat, and Lane Frost is like really popular. So all that to say though, is I just prayed through it and just accepted it. So then the reason why I'm getting to this is then someone in the church, had heard about this and, was a cowgirl, and she was having her own encounters with Jesus. And she went home one weekend and the Holy Spirit told her, when you're home, go and get that Bible. There's only like so many copies made in the nation. And it's a Bible, it's a Lane Frost Bible. And it has the prayer of salvation in it. And give it to Sarah Arnold. And so she brought it to church and gave it to Sarah. And that night, Sarah read it and said, I want to live for Jesus. And she accepted the Lord into her heart. And then it was a couple weeks later that she ended up getting baptized in water.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a tradition in our church to lay hands and like prophesy and encourage and speak scripture over Sarah. Everyone who gave her words and identity were just spot on. And so, even though she's not, all the time demonstrating and watching all the right shows, and she, had that moment and, is often reminded of those scriptures, and you just don't know how it's going to happen.
How old was she when when she gave her life to the Lord and got baptized a couple years ago?
Yeah. I think 18. Yeah, I think 18. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I've loved about watching the way you guys parent Sarah is that, yeah, she's always worn these costumes. Like
Yeah.
she's not that aware of gender, not that much. You know, probably more now than she was. So yeah, so she'd be Batman and
Mhm.
Iron Man for a long time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
She wasn't Iron Woman. She was just Iron Man because that was the character.
Right.
And you guys, I mean, from what I saw, you never squashed that. You
Right.
never like shamed her about that. You didn't I mean, I'm curious how you guys wrestled through that
Yeah.
and what gave you the peace to be so open-handed because you never shamed her.
Yeah, I feel good about that. I feel like that's true because I think early on, I mean, so I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor, so I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in full-time ministry. So I'm a ministry kid. So my dad was a pastor and the executive director of a parachurch. So it was like our whole life was around ministry. And in a very good way, there was an expectation to, you're going to show up on, Sunday, you know, that kind of the church doors are open, you're going to be there. So in some ways, like that was really healthy, and I'm grateful for that. And in another way, as I'm growing up, it was almost like maybe a religious duty. So there's like two sides of the same coin. And one, it was like really redemptive, and another, it was like religious expectation, maybe performance. And I think early on, Jessica and I said, we don't want to fight our kids to go to church or have this antagonistic relationship where like we're convincing them to come to church. We're threatening them. We're shaming them. We're guilting them, to come to church to be a part of the body. And early on, it just was very obvious. Like Sarah was going to go to church in a costume. Like early on, she was gonna have a costume. We weren't gonna have some cute Sunday outfit on. We weren't all gonna be like the family that matches in church. And if that's you listening, that's fine. It's beautiful. But it wasn't gonna be us. And so it was like, oh, so we either are gonna fight her every Sunday to change, and then she's gonna get resentful and you know angry and hateful towards us and going to church, or we're just going to accept the fact that it's okay for her to wear a costume. And if people don't like that, if people judge us, if it's not the religious thing to do, like that was going to be okay. Now, thankfully, at the same time, we were in Christian communities that were gracious, kind, loving, accepting. If they were judgmental, they weren't like outwardly judgmental to us. Maybe they were inwardly. I don't know. But most of them were very like accepting of Sarah and were like, hey, that's a cool outfit. Or hey, what's your character today? Or who you dressed up as? And we're pretty like willing to engage her. So there wasn't a lot of like religious expectations to like fit a certain like mold of a Sunday morning church family. Because truthfully, it was either we were going to do that and break Sarah's spirit, or we weren't going to do it, and we just chose not to do it. And admittedly, sometimes it can be awkward. Like sometimes you're going to church, even now, less so now, but in some of those early days, like you're going to church and you're like, Sarah, like externally, Sarah looks a little odd in this costume. Like if you didn't know our daughter, you'd be like, wow, this is an odd
Well,
family. Like,
sometimes those those Spider-Man costumes can be like full body, like glove and everything. So it's almost like wearing a skin, and so it's kind of like revealing.
yeah, I mean, she's not like all curvy and everything, but yeah, so it's like, okay, this is a little awkward, but that's okay. Like it's gonna be okay. But then Sarah can be herself. She can engage with people. She can be loved by them. They can love her in return. She can feel welcomed. She doesn't feel judged or ostracized or isolated. She feels like, oh, these are my people. This church is my people. So then, when it's time to go to youth groups, like, yeah, I'm going to go hang out with my people. It's time to come to Sunday. Yeah, these are my people. And they know Sarah and they love her, despite or in spite of some of like the awkwardness or, sometimes it's just uncomfortable, where she'll just come and say things. You're like, wow, that's a little uncomfortable. That's a little edgy. And that's okay. They're like, no, we know Sarah. We love Sarah. She's a part of us. And so that's also been a huge blessing is not only the willingness to let her go to church wearing, the latest thing that she's into, but then also having people that are willing to like meet her in that and love her and in a sense, like reveal Christ to her. And that has been really beautiful. She loves to be social, but she struggles socially, if that makes sense. She loves to be around people. She loves to make new friends. But her peers, it's been hard at times because they're like, wow, this kid's odd. This kid, whatever they want to say, weird. I don't like, there's this, the vibe here is just a little off because Sarah has a hard time with that like interaction, peer interaction. And so there's been sadness and loneliness and
Jealousy.
And why did God make me? I hate my autism. Like God made me with autism. Like she's never said I hate God, I don't think.
No.
But she's like, she's said things like, I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know if I trust God. I don't know if I believe in Jesus because why would he make me this way? And those are hard conversations. Like there's not like a little quick, easy answer. You just kind of slap on that and everything goes away. Like, oh, Sarah, you're going to be fine. God knows like all those are true, but like in those moments, those don't comfort her.
Yeah, they're like hyper spiritualized and they're not an answer that she's willing to hear and receive at that point.
So in some ways, like she's wrestled with like hard theological, if you will, like realities at a younger age than I think a lot of her peers, because she's experienced like some suffering and she's experienced some of that isolation and that hopelessness, and yet has her own unique expressions of faith in her life in Christ. Could she like articulate those point by point and, give you the outline of her faith and why she believes in Jesus? No, heck no. But there's a realness to it that is really, really pretty amazing. It's really beautiful, actually.
So I remember when I was in my 20s and he was in his later 20s, and he was finally coming to terms with in wrestling with some of those questions around being bipolar. And he would ask questions like, especially in the darker phases of bipolar, why did God make me this way? Maybe I should just, obviously in the dark places, maybe I should just die so I can go to heaven and be healed. So I'm not this way anymore.
Yeah.
And so we would, talk about, well, what do you look like in heaven? Do you, especially when you're substantially neurodivergent, what is the redemptive version of yourself look like? And, we would talk about that. And, does Sarah wrestle through questions like that just yet? Even, not the word redemption, but, what does she think it means for her to follow God as neurodivergent? And does she feel like it's a temporary state, or is she finding her own self in there, like being okay with the way God made her, I guess is maybe the question.
It's an ongoing journey. And I think sometimes in some days she feels way more comfortable in her own skin and who she is and who she's becoming and who God has created her to be. And then I think some days, a lot of anger, fear, despair, and some of those, much darker thoughts of, maybe it's just better if I don't live anymore. I want to go to heaven and be with like her deceased family members, my dad, Jess's grandfather, Jess's aunt, people that she really loved that have passed away and are in heaven. And she's like, oh, maybe I just want to go live with them. I just want to go be in heaven with them because this is hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see like these veins of her true identity that have followed her whole life. That she's lovable and kind and fun to be with and interesting. And, there's individuals that have known her, like yourself, that really enjoy those parts of Sarah.
Yeah.
And so, she does really well when, those areas are encouraged.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on just her being able to function in life, like with laundry and like eating balanced meals and knowing the value of money. And knowing like those executive functioning things like, no, you can't dye your hair black because Isabel's getting married in August and you said you wanted to be a blonde. So no, just that she then gets really frustrated with me and we just like clash. And then it's at that time she ends up, feeling like I'm just no good at anything. And why did I even have to come here, And so you almost have to just surrender it over to the Lord and just like trust. Right now, our biggest moment of trust is she's trying to move out on like a $150 budget a month, You're like, whoa, okay. But, it's like we're all throwing our arms up, like our two other children and Andrew and I, and saying, we got to let her do this because if she's motivated, she'll do it. If she has to think through that process, because I think in my case, I enable her too much. I want her to have clean laundry, like the things that I could control. I want to know that she's bathing every once in a while, kind of thing.
You're like every parent of someone in their early 20s, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
they don't have to be neurodivergent for parents to worry about whether or not they're bathing.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's as much our own growth and discipleship, sanctification, spiritual formation, whatever word you want to use, as it is Sarah's, because there's constantly an invitation to trust, to surrender. And yes, she's moving out maybe, but there's a ton of safeguards. It's not like we're just like, yes, Sarah, go get your place. Like that's not what's happening. It's a step of like surrender. Like, God, is there something you're doing here for us and for Sarah? How can we shepherd that? But it's always asking of us, like, yeah, okay, you're ultimately her father, you're ultimately her savior, her king. And so how can we come alongside what you're doing in her life? And that looks different than I would say for many other 20-year-olds in this world, or at least in America. But it's a trust thing. It's really like it's a deep trust, and it's not linear or well packaged and real tight to say, oh yeah, Sarah's, she's a disciple of Christ, and this is what that looks like. Because I think there's a temptation, right, to say, well, kind of like to check the boxes, or there's a certain script or a mold that we're trying to shape people in, meaning myself, the church in the West, whatever. And, Sarah is largely outside of those boxes and not checking all those boxes, but yet has a faith life and does know Christ, and he is drawing her. It looks different. So I say that because, yeah, it's like it asks a lot of us just say, okay, God, we're trusting you that Sarah knows you, that you of course know her, and you're drawing her and she's responding to that.
Well, that's beautiful. Like, what do you think we have to learn about
Yeah.
the faith from the faith life of those who experience God differently,
Right.
like Sarah, or people. I have a friend who has a daughter with Downs, and their experience of God and their experience of themselves is different. But so, what do you think they have to teach us about the heart of God that we would miss if we weren't blessed by them?
Just as diverse as the disability is, right? Or the neurodivergence, I think each person has something to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
I've often thought, what is the Lord trying to teach me through Sarah
Mm-hmm.
about myself, about him? And I think we're still unpacking that. You don't have to look apart and say apart and be a certain way in order for the Father to love you. And Sarah has kind of boldly taught that. I was just thinking just recently, she will, like call you out
Mm-hmm.
if you are angry. And she'll just be like, well, why are you angry? Or why are you rushing me? And it just kind of makes you stop, and think about your own motivation
Mm-hmm.
behind like what you're trying to control.
Thing that immediately came to mind when you answered the question, which is really what I think is at the heart or the theme of what you're saying, is for Sarah, I think one of the ways that she just reflects heart of Christ is she's just pretty much honest to a fault. I don't know if that's a way to say it, but she kind of like just tells you what's on her heart, what's on her mind. If you ask her a question, like, Sarah, like, did you do, like, did you spend that money that we asked you not to spend? And she'll be like, I did. She doesn't like mince words. She's like, yeah, I did. I did. Why, sweetie? She's like, I just really wanted that Lego set or whatever. Yeah, but sweetie, we asked you. I know. I really wanted that. And you're like, in some ways, you're like, that's just kind of beautifully honest and real and true. She's not trying to like fake it or like massage it over, or she's just like, yeah, I really want it. Or you're like, sweetie, like, what's going on? Like, why are you so angry? Or why are you being mean to your sister or whatever? She's like, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of her. I'm jealous that she has friends and I don't. Or I'm jealous that she has a boyfriend and I don't. Or I'm jealous that that dress looks pretty on her. Like,
Yeah.
I can maybe think of one or two conversations in my life with another Christian where they're just that honest. They're like, yeah, I'm acting like a butt because I'm jealous. I'm just super jealous of you right now. Or I'm super jealous of this person. Like, wow, that's like refreshingly honest. And it really is disarming. It's like, it's unarming. It like disarms you. And she's very vulnerable in that way. Like, she just shares vulnerably from her heart a lot of times. Like, I'm super sad because, like, she broke up with a boyfriend about a month ago, 2 months ago. So some days she's doing great, and other days she's like just super sad. And we're like, sweetie, what's going on? She's like, I'm just super sad that I broke up with my boyfriend.
And then she tells us, I texted him 20 times and he didn't answer back. And you're like, give the guy some space.
She's like, literally, like, I've texted him 30 times. He hasn't responded to me. I'm like, that's awkward. And yeah, I could see why you're sad. Like, I'd be sad too if I remember being sad when I broke up with my girlfriend in high school. Like, yeah, just that honesty, but the vulnerability. I think it's vulnerability that I think is really refreshing. I think that honesty, that vulnerability does reflect the heart of God. And just like any human being, she's got her hopes, her dreams, her desires, her longings that a lot of people are scared to even mention for fear of rejection, or fear of being isolated or judged, or like, oh, maybe I'm really not supposed to have that desire or longing. And they're not sinful, lustful. They're not that. It's just like they're redemptive longings and desires. And she's just like pretty open about that and pretty vocal, like not vocal, but very open and communicates those. And you're like, wow, that's really refreshing that someone would just lead with her heart like that.
She is quite aware of the shows that she shouldn't be watching, but she's just kind of like, I'm going to watch them, you know? And you can't tell me otherwise because I'm 18. No, she's 20. Well, no, but like
Yeah.
I'm an adult now, so you can't tell me I can't. You were like,
And so we use those as opportunities. Like, well, sweetie, like, I mean, what do you enjoy about him? Well, this romance or okay. And what do you think's helpful? Well, this and that. What's unhelpful? Well, we don't have those conversations all the time, but there's opportunities for those.
so, but then, then somebody then in your community, she might be talking about those shows
Right.
and they're just like, oh my gosh, you let her watch that. And so I think, and this could be a whole nother podcast and Andrew mentioned it before, but like your own like shame
Mm-hmm.
of and I think this happens with all your children. And I have counseled a lot of, people who their child has been, diagnosed with ADHD or autism and just like their own shame of their child's behavior and how that reflects on them as a parent, and you don't want to religiously say to yourself, well, I did real well with the first one, so obviously it's not me. Right? Um, but just accepting that each child is different and, they are who they are. And you can't take that as a reflection upon yourself and feel like shame about it.
Yeah, you guys have had really good differentiation of your identities from your kids for a long time. I mean, I think that's something I noticed e even when they were younger. Usually, parents don't learn that until around the teenage years, but somehow you guys, I don't know, maybe it's because growing up in a small town with parents around and all that, but you guys were able to intuitively figure that out. Maybe overtly, maybe you read a really good book, but you've had that for quite a long time. So, it seems like the whole situation, you guys have learned some really healthy parenting things, a little earlier than sometimes other parents get to them. So, it seems like it's accelerated your own, emotional health and spiritual growth
Mm-hmm.
to have Sarah around.
Oh, for sure.
And
For sure.
so I'm wondering as a kind of a closer thought, what like exhortation or request would you give or what advice would you give communities of
Yeah.
those who around parents who have neurodivergent children?
I mean, we are super thankful for our community. I mean, they're amazing. And like sometimes Sarah will like she'll be at church, she'll be talking with another adult or a friend of hers that they're adults or friends of ours, and she'll say something like, "Yeah, I'm super depressed," or "I want to hurt myself," or "I don't want to live any longer." And I'm really sad, and I want to go to heaven and be with Jesus. I don't want to be on there. And, if you're hearing that from a teenager or a young adult for the first time, you're not used to those conversations. I mean, they're pretty startling, maybe shocking. And and I think the amazing thing in the communities, I think our communities have by and large done a good job of like holding that, like just attuning, saying, wow, Sarah, that sounds really hard. Like, I want you to know I love you. I'm here for you. We love you, your parents love you, but they're not trying to like fix it because they themselves are so uncomfortable with the conversation and the content. So they're not trying to like say, oh, Sarah, don't think that, or we need to go tell your parents, or I mean, they do all that. They come tell us, but they're not trying to like fix her in that moment because of their discomfort with her or what she's saying. They just love her. And then oftentimes they'll circle back to us and say, hey, just so you know, we had this conversation. So we have a relationship with many of the people in our church, and they're like, hey, Sarah told me this today. Are you guys aware of that? Yeah, we're aware of that. We've been working through that for a while now. Okay, I just wanted you to know I was a little freaked out when she told me, but I just loved her. I just cared about her. I just held her. So there's an acceptance of who she is and who she's becoming. There's a gentle nurturing and guiding in our community, but they're not trying to fix her, and they're not trying to shape her into their image of who a teenage disciple should be, or a young 20-something disciple should be. And so there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of like relational equity. There's a lot of relational love. And people by and large are pretty proactive to like initiate conversation with her. So I would say communities of faith that have people that are neurodivergent, that are on the spectrum, that have disabilities, um, move towards them, initiate relationship, be relationally connected, be a community that person feels seen and known and cared for. You don't have to be best friends, but it's like, oh, there's Sarah. Hey, Sarah, we're so glad you're here. Like, what's going on? Like, what movies you've been watching? What sports are you interested? And that builds a huge bridge that Sarah, like I said at the beginning, like she comes to church and like, these are my people. I know these people love me. And so she wants to be there. So because she's there, she's with the family of God, the people of God, she's being discipled relationally, in ways that we could, never do. Like people are pouring into her in ways that, the community, the family of God does, not her Jess and I as her parents.
And then as parents, I think you just, like the community, you need to have grace, and then to not have judgment, and to know that there's a lot with just the atmosphere. You know what I mean? So I could go to church and feel uber guilty that Sarah is maybe playing Minecraft on the back wall with another kid who's, just uncomfortable in their own skin and don't maybe want to be there. Like there's this kid visiting right now from California, and he's probably neurodivergent himself. And she's befriended him and welcomed him into the community to let him, know like, don't stay, at home while your mom comes. Like, come, we'll kind of be off, on our own, doing our own thing. But at the same time, they're sitting there in a room where the Holy Spirit is very welcome and Jesus is there. They're not dancing. They're not putting their hands up in the air. They're not laying hands on people and praying. They're not even sitting in the seats, right? But they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to know that, they've felt the presence of God.
Mm-hmm.
It just might not look the same as, everybody else. But I'm just thankful that she's, faithfully wanting to be there, and even though she's not participating, she's not writing down the scripture, she's there.
Because she's present, and she's present with her people. I think that's a great word, just to help communities accept everyone the way they are, and say,
Yeah.
okay, what is your experience of God here? And we want you to be here with us when you're
Yeah.
experiencing
Yeah,
God.
exactly. That's it. I think definitely Sarah feels that. We want you to be here with us. We're glad
Yeah.
you're here.
Like a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think, communities of faith that can create that sense of belonging for autistic people and you and I and everybody in between is really impactful, deeply impactful and transformative.
Well, you guys, it's just been so rich to hear, and to hear how you think about discipling and raising Sarah and helping her spirit flourish, and just drawing that out of her. So she's just such a precious person.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
she's always doing something interesting.
Oh yeah.
She will tell you all about it. And I don't know.
Oh, yes.
I just always enjoyed talking to her. So, and you guys have just done a stellar job, and I know it hasn't been easy, and there'll be times ahead, times behind, times ahead, but yeah, you guys have handled it
Yeah, thank
remarkably
you.
well. So,
No, I really appreciate that. And yeah, she's a gift. She's super unique. I can't think of anybody like Sarah that I've ever met.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And just wait, tomorrow she'll be a different person.
Oh yeah,
In a different
we'll have a
costume.
different,
And you have a different
interest.
You get to meet somebody new.
Oh yeah, she'll have a different interest.
I know. On Saturday night, she's like, anime and goth things in my Easter basket. Because all the younger cousins got an Easter basket. You're just like, sweetie, you are 20, Like, mommy wasn't thinking about an Easter basket. So we ended up like going and shopping for her Easter basket together at Walmart.
Oh my gosh, precious. Well, this goth could be, swim black nail polish, right? I mean,
Yeah,
who
exactly.
hasn't had a goth phase? I mean,
Yeah,
really.
she has black nail polish and
Jess, I can honestly say I didn't ever have a goth phase, but that's because I'm a hippie. Hippies,
No, that's true.
you're either like full of a lot of color, right?
Mm.
I went through that phase. I'm still going through that phase.
I might have. Did I do the full on goth phase? Nah, not really. It just seemed like a lot of maintenance.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it is. And she doesn't like to wear makeup, so I don't know.
It's all right. It's all right. Oh man. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your vulnerability and your candor.
Yeah, thanks, Jess.
Yes.
So much. Well, so you have been listening to the Ordinary Discipleship podcast. You can get the rest of our seasons wherever you get your podcasts, and you can always look up more resources at whoology.co. That's WHOOLOGY.co. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.